Hello everyone, this is going to be a demonstration speedrun of Rise of the Triad Dark War, the any percent category. I will mention ahead of time that I'm going to be playing a little more conservatively, because when you play any percent and go for like a world record time, you're going to be doing a lot riskier strats, not saving as much, because quick saving isn't exactly fast, and I'll just be playing a little bit safer on certain levels that are more tough, so the strats and stuff I'm going to be using are just for the sake of completing the game as fast as I can, while being safe at the same time. So let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about with this. So first thing that's important is who I'm playing as. There's 5 different characters in the game, and the one I'm using is Lorelei. Lorelei is the fastest character in the game, which is important for a speedrun, but the downside to it is the fact that she has the lowest health in the game. So dying is very easy to do even on the easy difficulty. So we will be trying to be as careful as we can. I kill myself there at the beginning of this level because I still don't have anything important yet in my inventory. So dying there is not a big deal, but it allows me to go into this level with full health. So let's explain another really important thing about Rise of the Triad when it comes to survival, which is the enemy spawns. Where enemies spawn on a map is always going to be the same. However, for some of those spawns, the number of enemies that come out and what enemies spawn are completely random. It's not the same for all of them, but for a good chunk of them, the enemies will be random. So it's very important to know where the enemies can spawn, what kind of enemies you have to go against, and how to appropriately deal with them in each room, which will often require a lot of on-the-fly strats. And that's going to be a consistent theme throughout a lot of the levels. Also, I'm a dog, by the way. I should have probably mentioned that earlier. But this is dog mode. This is a very useful power-up in this game, because it makes you invulnerable to damage, but more importantly, it allows you to jump over enemies and obstacles by attacking and using the use function, because both of them give you a jump. So using both of them will give you just enough height to go over a lot of stuff. So episode 1 is probably the easiest part of this game, and also has the least amount of things that can go wrong. So that's kind of nice. It's a good chance to explain a lot of the small things about this game. By the way, you noticed that I got hit by a net by one of those enemies dressed in black. Those are over patrols, and the over patrol is kind of a pain to deal with early on in the game, so you want to get a knife as early as you can, which I just got there. Normally on a regular run you would want to do that. There's a really interesting bug with this game where if you collect the knife during any part of the time the game is like active, you will somehow still have the knife even if you start a new game. And since I was practicing stuff earlier, I had a knife that I had picked up, so I was able to use it there, which normally is something that's not going to happen if you start the game, but it's not something that's like banned, because nobody wants to have to restart the entire game just for the sake of one glitch. But yeah, we want to have the knife because it deals with the over patrol a lot better. Those guys in the high guards, which are the enemies with machine guns, are kind of the biggest threat in this episode, as well as in the game kind of in general, but every enemy that you see that's a triad has a hit scan attack, which kind of makes dealing with them with all these large open areas really annoying. But luckily, we have God mode for this level, which is just another power-up you can pick up. God mode will allow you to basically turn into a god, which comes with the ability to be invulnerable to damage, as well as cast these balls of magic which home onto enemies and kill them instantly. And I'm serious when I say instantly, because every enemy will die in one hit to this attack. And I mean any enemy. And that's going to be more obvious and more apparent and more useful in the second episode. But for here, it's just useful to get through this level without dying. Anytime you can get a power-up like that without having, that will help reduce the risk of dying is useful. And because of all the different elements of RNG in the game and how this game is in general, knowing where all these things are is really important for the sake of completing a run. Because if things go bad, you need to know where health is. If you're running low on ammo, you need to have a contingency plan for that. So you really just need a lot of game knowledge to complete a run of this successfully, and so especially with a run where the goal is to just finish the game rather than go for a world record, that's really important. And in this level, you're introduced to elevators. Elevators, believe it or not, have an element of RNG to them that can cause you to lose time, which is elevator music. I guarantee we're going to see it at least once during this run. But elevator music, if it happens, you lose about 12 seconds waiting in the elevator. And unfortunately, it is totally random, and as far as I know, there is nothing you can do about it to mitigate it, to make it shorter, to cancel it entirely. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just a thing in the game. And that is annoying, and it is an arbitrary way to lose time, but there are worse ways to lose a lot more time in this game, so you're never going to, like, lose a record because of elevator music. Unless you somehow just get really unlucky and get it like 8 times in a row. But that almost never happens. Usually I only get elevator music like once or twice during a run, so... But that can always change. So yeah, we're getting through... We already got the second key we need for this level to get to the exit. And this is one of those levels where there's a lot of health laying around, so it's very easy to stay alive. As long as you know where those health areas are, it's pretty easy to get through this level without any trouble. So now we're going on to Spring Surprise. This level's a little bit intimidating because if you get bad enemy spawns, the risk of dying in the beginning section is very high. And, like, mostly we want to not have to deal with high guards. But we got one right there, which is unfortunate, but as long as we can stay alive, that's what's important. I know enemy spawns there, that's good. So yeah. Luckily the enemy spawns overall were not that bad, so we have pretty good health. Sometimes it can be a little bit tough there. So now we're going to get this key, and before we go to the next major area, we're going to get the firewall and this bulletproof armor. And the firewall is my favorite weapon in the game. However, this is the only level where you can really use it, because a lot of them are very out of the way to get and don't have a lot of practical application. As a matter of fact, you only use about 3 of them in this level. Oh, and this is the elevator music, by the way. Like I said, totally random. You just lose time because of it. So, now that that fun little trip is over, we're gonna get the next key to get to the exit. Twice in a row, nice. Gives me a good chance to get some water. But this is one of those factors of RNG that can affect the run itself, so it's good that you're getting to see it happen, because it can affect the time. Not by much, but it can in general affect the time. So now we're on the boss fight of this episode, which is General Darien. This boss fight's pretty easy. We need to shoot these buttons inside of this cage and destroy all of them in order for Darien to come out and fight us. The pattern I'm using is pretty optimal because sometimes Darien will have his pathfinding get kind of broken and he will get stuck inside of that cage. Which didn't happen, thank goodness, but now we can just fire rockets at him and kill him pretty quickly. And we want to do that the minute he comes out of there, because if he gets out of there and we don't kill him, he's going to start jumping around and becoming really hard to hit, so it's important that we kill him pretty quickly. So now we're on Episode 2. Episode 2 introduces 2 new enemies into the game. The Strike Patrol, which are absolute pushovers. Their main gimmick is that they can roll, which is not that hard to deal with. But the big issue that we have to deal with this in episode 2 and onward is the Triad Enforcers. These are very problematic enemies because they are not only total tanks, they have a lot of health, but they also have a rapidly firing hit scan attack like High Guards. But the most annoying thing about them is the fact that they can throw grenades, and the grenades do a lot of damage. So it's very easy for them to just throw it at you where you can't see them and you just suddenly lose like over half your health. Very scary. And this level's kind of cool. There are 3 keys we have to collect, and you can basically collect them in whatever order you want. The way we do it is optimal because it gets us Mercury mode, the ability to fly, pretty early on, which makes traveling through some of these rooms much easier, like this one, for example, where you have this streams of fire on the floor.
Outsider.
Alright, so we gotta get this key. Gotta be very careful about those fireballs shooting at it can kill you pretty quickly. And Mercury mode will also be useful in this room because there are potholes, which is another obstacle in this game. And by having Mercury mode, we can't fall in them. And they're also really hard to see, which doesn't help. So being able to just avoid that's nice. And before we go and use all those keys, we're going to get one more instance of Mercury mode, because there are a lot of potholes on this floor. You won't be able to see them because we're moving very fast. And the reason you want to avoid them isn't just because they do damage, because they do a very small amount of damage, but they also slow you down. Take a quick exit here. And now we're in the room. The room is a pretty cool level casually, because it focuses on solving puzzles and dodging obstacles. This is the one level in the game that doesn't have enemies in it. That's kind of its gimmick. Because like I said, it's all about the puzzles and avoiding, you know, obstacles and stuff. So this first rocket jump we did at the beginning, by the way, skips getting the first key on the level, which is kind of a nice little time save there. That's what mostly rocket jumps are going to be used for, is mostly for very small sequence breaks. I should also mention that the movement in this game is not very smooth, so making tight and clean movement through this level is very hard. But yeah, we got through the room. Now we're in Spiraling In. Spiraling In is one of those levels where what you get at the beginning of the level is very crucial, because you get bad enemy spawns and a lot of Triad Enforcers, your risk of dying is extremely high. We don't want to have that happen. Not at all. So we're going to get some health, and we're going to do another rocket jump here. Like I said, a lot of them are just small sequence breaks. This one's pretty big, because this rocket jump gets us straight to the last area in the level, which is super cool, because it skips such a huge part of this level. Now we're on Rocky Plateau. Casually, this is like the worst level in the game. It's unnecessarily large and very easy to get lost. So, like, routing this level when I originally came up with a route for this game was a pain. It was an absolute pain in the butt. It took me like an hour and a half to come up with a reasonable one, because I kept getting lost. But yeah, there's not a whole lot going on. This is a pretty straightforward level. Basically have to do it the way it's intended, which is just a lot of land traversing. There's also that guy right there. So I mentioned that the enemy spawns can be random. There are some spawns in the game that are fixed and will always spawn a specific enemy, and one of them is in this level, so it's important to know those ones too, on top of just knowing how to deal with random enemy spawns that you get. And that Triad Enforcer right there is one of those ones that is fixed. And so that's important when it comes to weapon routing. Like, I always want to have 2 bazooka rounds at that point so that I can kill that Triad Enforcer. Because it's much faster to kill him that way than it is with a machine gun, that's for sure. Now we're into 4-way chamber. 4-way chamber can be a bit of a tough level, especially if you get tough enemy spawns to deal with. But it's still a pretty cool level regardless. Like I said, you just need to know how to deal with the various enemy spawns that can happen. But yeah, this level is, like I said, challenging. There's those fireballs right there. I want to get health from them, but I can also very easily get hit by them. So I gotta be a little cautious. This is one of those rooms where bad RNG can make this level a lot harder. Like, if I get a Triad Enforcer that spawns in this room, it's very difficult to deal with, because I don't have a lot of maneuvering room. Luckily I didn't, though. But I mean, if he is there, I just kill him with a bazooka. That's like one of those things you come up with as you play the game more. You just kind of know strats to do. Alright, so that Triad Enforcer is always there, and sometimes Triad Enforcer will spawn behind that door, so I always have the bazooka ready for him. Alright. Not a whole lot here, though. It's just, like I said, getting to the end. This level's a bit long, as far as, like, traveling goes. Alrighty. Of course, bulletproof armor does help in this section because it not only prevents you from taking damage, but with any damage you take in the game, you do slightly slow down for a fraction of a second, which is just a really small way to lose time. It's not anything crucial, but having bulletproof armor mitigates that, which is nice. Now we're going on to the second boss, which is Sebastian Christ. This boss fight is kind of neat because it's kind of a full level before you actually get to the boss fight. And it's gonna be a really interesting use of certain power-ups on this level for this boss fight. This boss fight is very easy as long as I get everything else right in this level. So there are random power-ups in this game, and one of them is in this hidden area here. So we're gonna go out of our way to get to this secret room to get to this hidden power-up. And this does seem like it's really out of the way, especially since we're going to be farming a random power-up here by saving. Trying to get God mode, which we got first try, which is very lucky. Normally it'll take a couple of tries, but again, it's all just luck. But, yeah, we want to get God mode here because not only does it make the level significantly easier, but it also is a lot faster to use God mode. Because enemies and the different RNG you can get for the spawns is not a problem when you have God mode. If you try to do this just the intended way, this level can vary with what enemies spawn, and you gotta kind of adapt to it. And it's very hard because there's a lot of enemies on this map, and also those fireballs you have to avoid getting killed by. So roughly about a minute to a minute and a half is saved if you get God mode pretty early on. So it's definitely worth getting, and most importantly, it's worth getting for this. Because as I said, God mode will kill any enemy in one hit, and that includes bosses. So, with the God mode power-up, we are able to kill the boss of this episode in one shot. You're able to do that by having the God mode power-up, and then get to that section fast enough. So now we're on episode 3. Episode 3 introduces robots, that's kind of its gimmick. But this episode starts out with a really rough level. Ooh, that's very lucky. So in some of these hallways, Triad Enforcers will spawn, and the number of Triad Enforcers that spawn in the hallway can be like 0, 1, or 2, and I think maybe occasionally it'll be 3. And this is kind of awful because in these hallways that they spawn, you have to kill them because they're in the way. And you can't go around them. Because these hallways are just narrow enough that you can't go around them. So that sucks. Because it can lead to arbitrary time loss, yes. So if this happens and you don't have any more bazooka ammo, you have to just shoot these guys to death with a machine gun. But it's okay, because once you get to the end of that, you have God mode, and the rest of this level is pretty easy. Yeah, this level's a bit of a doozy, though. Also just has some really weird level design, like having the world's longest hallway right here, for example. So we gotta get to this key in order to access this door, which leads to another key. Again, really weird level design choices here. And once again, down the world's longest hallway. Oh, I was wrong. And unfortunately, if we get this like spinning blade here, we can't go around it or even through it. And with the magic balls that the God Mode power-up has, they don't function the same as rockets do, so you can't even do like a rocket jump with them to get over the trap. So it's very important to just I don't know, be patient, I guess. There's really not much to say there. It's just that the spinning blade's in the way. You can't really do much about it. So this is another level where enemy spawns at the beginning can be very dicey at times. But luckily we get God mode right off the bat after that, so the rest of this level's pretty easy. Alrighty. We have to be very careful in this hallway because there is a really awful glitch that can happen with these potholes, where if you step on them in just the right spot with God mode, you will get stuck in the floor and you can't even activate doors anymore. So you basically just effectively soft lock the game. So that's unfortunate, but we made it to the end. Alright, so now we're going on to Dead in 5 Seconds. This name for this level is not a lie. It's very easy to die in this level. There's a lot of robots, a lot of fireballs, a lot of firewalls, and all that jazz. And we have to kill that guy right there, because if he gets in the way when we're pushing this pillar, it will stop the pillar and we won't be able to get to the gold key, which we want to get to. Alright, so this level also really introduces the ballistic craft, which is that thing down that hallway, and luckily we're not going to deal with them very often, because the ballistic craft fires a lot of missiles at you, and on top of that, the ballistic craft is the only enemy in the game that can't die. That's kind of their gimmick, and luckily we don't have to deal with them very often. I think that's only the only real level where we actually do need to deal with them.
Outsider.
This level is really cool, by the way. There is a pretty big rocket jump sequence we have to do about halfway through the map. That's a bit iffy. I should explain this now if I haven't already. Rocket jumping is a thing in this game. It's an intentionally existing thing in this game. But it is very iffy. Sometimes you will not actually get a rocket jump, and sometimes your height and speed will vary based on just for no reason. It's pretty janky, but it's very useful because it lets us do some pretty nice skips and shortcuts. Alright. So we're coming up on the second half of this map where the fun really begins. Oh, yikes. Gotta be careful there. So coming up in this room is a key we have to get that's protected by 4 pillars that are in the way, and you must move them by hitting switches in a couple different areas on this room. And unfortunately, those areas are a bit tricky to get through because they're surrounded by a lot of power downs, which really hinder your movement. So what we're going to do is just skip all that by rocket jumping. And we want to kill all the enemies in this room because your health is going to be very low at the end of this rocket jump sequence. Here we go. It's also important to note that if I screw up that rocket jump sequence, I will get stuck, and that's why I save beforehand, because otherwise I literally can't get out. It's pretty bad. Alrighty. So we're at the end of this level. Oh, this is really bad. Crap. Don't die. No, God. That was very, very unlucky. What happened was there were enemies in that room that got in my way as I was trying to get past that last spinning blade. But they got just in the way that I got stuck and died because of the spinning blades, which is very unfortunate. But the plus side with the spawns is, although they're random, they're only random once the level generates. So if you save during or after the level's generated, the spawns will be the same. So if something like that happens again, you are able to, properly adapt to it. So now we're on Angry Quilt. This is a pretty straightforward level. This is another level that uses random item farming, which this time we're gonna need dog mode. And what? Oh my goodness, I've not seen a Triad Enforcer there in a long time. That's not a bad thing though, because we still have a fully loaded bazooka. There's just a lot of them, aren't there? So yeah, coming up here is the random item we need to farm. Alright, so I'm gonna save here. Close, but not quite dog mode. Once again, close, but not dog mode. That wasn't even close to what I needed. Ugh. And sometimes this can take a few tries to get what you need. Just unfortunately part of it. Getting dog mode here doesn't save quite as much time as it does with episode 2, with the boss level, but it's still pretty useful because it allows you to get through a lot of enemies and takes some pretty nice shortcuts. So it's definitely worth getting. And really, you only lose a couple of seconds each time you don't get it. And as I've said before, there's worse ways to lose time in this game. Alright, so I'm gonna stand on this guard's head because I want him to be dead, because otherwise he's gonna be in the way when I go on this elevator on the ride back. So again, one of those little, things to know about the game is if you see an enemy there, you need to properly, deal with that situation, because if I don't kill him there, he's gonna get in the way. And that's just one of those things that comes with time in playing the game, if you're interested in running it. Alright, sweet, we're out of there. Oh, not quite. So we're almost at the end of the level. The end of this level can be a little bit scary because of RNG, not just because of enemies, but because of these spinning blades coming up ahead. Because the patterns they take are not the same every time, and a lot of times you can get patterns that can lead to you getting stuck, and basically it's unavoidable death. And if that does happen for whatever reason, you can always just so I was gonna say, sorry, I'm thinking about this level. Yeah, you can just rocket jump over it, but you really don't want to have to do that. Yeah, this level's one of the harder levels in episode 3 because of just the sheer number of things that can kill you. This Triad Enforcer is not much of a threat in that room, if I get it there. And that's mostly because of how the collision on the moving platforms are. This game runs on a modified Wolfenstein engine, so a lot of things they implement really shouldn't be in this game or in this engine, yet somehow they are. So that leads to some kind of buggy results. So it makes moving through areas with those platforms really tough. Also, we absolutely want to get that bulletproof armor, especially for this upcoming series of rooms. It's a lot of enemies. I'm gonna save here because there's fireballs that could kill me if I'm not careful. Alrighty. So yeah, this room is a bit of a hornet's nest. If you get a lot of Triad Enforcers like I'm getting right here, this level can be really tough to deal with. But I'm getting kind of lucky, which is nice. Because there's a very high chance of dying if you're not careful in that room. So now we're going on to Enemy. Enemy is very special. This is a boss fight that for the longest time was just really hard to deal with. He's very random, very hard to hit, and does a lot of damage. He's kind of an anomaly. We could not figure out a way to, like a good strat to fight him. Until recently, where a runner by the name of TBCR came up with a fairly consistent strat against this boss. The boss is still kind of random, but this strat is definitely better than what we've used in the past. So what I'm going to do here is get this firebomb, save in case this goes bad. I'm going to lure enemy out this way. And just doing that will allow us to get 5 guaranteed firebomb shots on him. I don't know where enemy went. Okay, there we go. Oh, that's not good. I had one really small flop with my movement, and that led to that happening. Normally I would be able to manipulate that boss a little bit better, but the main thing is that we keep enemy within this relative center area of the arena because it's the easiest way to fight him. Wherever he is? Okay, there he is. Cool. Alright, so I didn't do quite enough damage to kill him, that's fine. I missed a lot of shots earlier. As you can see, there are plenty of rocket launchers to fight him with, so... There we go, okay. So, that boss fight wasn't perfect, but this is definitely easier to deal with than he used to be. Because he's very, very hard to hit. He can move around very fast and very randomly. But we managed to handle him pretty well. So now we're coming on to this level, which is a very fun level. The first level of Episode 4, which is where the difficulty of this game just kind of gets out of control. And a lot of that has to do with the level design, because these levels in Episode 4 are pretty tough. Oops, I didn't open that soon enough. And part of that is also because of these new enemies, these Death Monks. You have the standard Death Monk, and then you have the Fire Monk. The Fire Monk is the real problem of the bunch, because Fire Monks shoot fireballs, as the name might imply. And those do a lot of damage to you. But this level here isn't quite as bad. We're going to be spending the first half of it as a dog. This game intends for you to take a dog mode power-up, which is why there is like 10 of them here. I think that's how many there is, I didn't really count, but you need to be a dog in order to get a gold key. So if you somehow run out of dog mode before getting this key, I don't know what to tell you. Just turn in your gamer license or something. But having dog mode is also very useful for a good chunk of this map in the beginning. Because like I've said before, dog mode makes you invulnerable to damage, so it makes you be able to squeeze through those firewalls without any risk. Alrighty. So we just gotta wait on this elevator. Alrighty. Save here in case things don't go well. So now we're gonna kind of go out of our way in order to get a rocket launcher so that we can do a rocket jump to skip part of the level and get straight to a key that we need, which is gonna be right here. That's not good. I should be able to survive another rocket jump though, so that's good. So we got the key. There's luckily a large crystal there which gives us health, so we can just safely go back now. Alright, gonna get this health from the healing basin. And we're doing good so far. Alright, I'm gonna save before this room because there is a small chance that it can be a little bit tough, depending on what enemies spawn. Oh, yikes. I didn't see him there. So, normally you're supposed to hit all these touchpads on the floor to move all those pillars to get straight to the exit, but we're just gonna move the very last one in front of the exit and rocket jump to it. It's pretty nice. So, this level right here, this is Crushing Defeat. This level is very tough. It's very claustrophobic, and there's a lot of fire monks on this map, and that poses quite a bit of a problem. Makes it very easy to die. So we're gonna try and be careful and get through this as carefully and quickly as we can. Oh, that's not a good way to do it. Uh-oh. That guy's not normally there. Alright, so I'm gonna make a slight detour to get that health, just because I'd rather have it. Just in case I didn't get lucky here. There's large crystal monks right here, but, you know, it's better to be safe than sorry, especially on episode 4. This game's difficulty curve just spikes like it's no one's business on this episode. It's definitely what I consider the hardest part of the run, is this episode. Well, I do think the boss for the previous episode is harder to fight. I'd say the levels overall make this the hardest episode in the game to speedrun. And we got somewhat decent luck in that room, so that wasn't too bad. That room level can be very dicey. Alright, so we're gonna keep this bazooka, and we're going to do another random item farm. And we want to get dog mode for this one, because it makes getting through this level a lot safer and allows us to take some shortcuts. Not quite. Nope. There we go. So, not that many tries to get it, so that's good. We're not going to lose too much time because of it. But yeah, without dog mode, this level can be pretty hard. There's a lot of enemies, and a lot of them are in very closed-off areas like this, which make them significantly harder to deal with. But we can just bypass a lot of that. And we can just jump over that guy, which is super cool. Alright, so we're making pretty good pace through this level. Alright, and since we still have a little bit of dog mode left over, we can just jump over this and hit that switch, which gets us to the exit elevator. Alright, so sometimes an enemy can spawn there. I use the machine gun there for safety more than anything. So now we're on Backfire. Backfire is what I consider like the last really hard level of this game. The other levels are not without challenge, for sure, but this is the last one that's like genuinely kind of tough. There's a lot that can go wrong here if you're not careful. Okay, sweet, made that. There's just a lot of obstacles and a lot of enemies. So first things first, we're gonna go over here because we need to get a key. And this section's really kind of awful because we do have to go out of our way to kill these death monks here. Because if we don't, they're going to get in the way when we try to get through the rest of this little claustrophobic maze here. So while it does seem like it's really out of the way to kill them, it is very important that we do. And we wouldn't even be able to get through this doorway if they're in the way anyways, if they're not dead. That's all just to get that one key. We're gonna take a minor shortcut here to get to the other side of the map. Whew, that was a little delayed, I almost died there. Ooh. Alrighty. As you can see, this game went a little bit overboard with the firewalls on this map. But here is coming up the scariest part of the level, which is evading all of these right here and not dying. Thank goodness we didn't. Because there's also sometimes an enemy that gets in the way and that can make us take damage. Involuntarily. So we're pretty much in the clear from this point because there's dog mode right here. I'm kind of stuck. Out of the way. That was a bit unlucky. I can't get through here. Hello? Game? The game? This is a new one. I've never seen this happen. I'm literally stuck and can't get past this wall. I'm not sure what's going on here, so I'm going to reload this save. Despite not wanting to, because that's just a really weird glitch. Like I said, this game is running on a modified Wolfenstein engine, so it's basically held together by band-aids, so glitches like that can sometimes happen. They don't really happen often, but hey, you know, it was funny. Need to get through here. Is it happening again? Okay, no it isn't. Thank goodness, I was worried for a moment. I was gonna say, if that happened twice in a row, that's gonna look bad, but that was just a really rough section. Alright, so now we're going on to Circles of Fire. This level is very, very, very easy compared to the rest of Episode 4. There's one slightly hard trick we have to do, but it's nothing in comparison to some of the previous levels. It's also a lot more linear, which is nice. Not quite as maze-like. That involves this room right here, so I'm gonna save as I progress towards where I need to be. Because there's little touch plates on the floor that open up doors, and this one in front of me will move those walls, but also activate access to some asbestos armor, and it's very important to have that because you're gonna see in a second just how much stuff goes on in this room, in this level. So you can see there are a lot of enemies. So having asbestos armor basically mitigates any risk on this level. And I'm not sure what's a greater threat, the number of enemies or the sheer number of text on the screen right now, obscuring my vision. But that's the end of this level, and now we're on to the Lair of El Oscuro, which is where we're going to have our encounter with the main villain of the enemy, but this is not actually the last level of the game. This is like Kristen, that we have a kind of level we have to complete before the boss, but it's not like a true boss fight in this level. Because you're not actually killing El Oscuro in this level, and I'll explain that as I get there. First, we're going to listen to some elevator music, and go into one of the most obnoxious rooms in this entire game. And I say that because there's a key in this room, and there's a locked door. However, the locked door is not opened by that key. It's opened by a key that is on the other side of the map. So you have to go get that key after that one, in order to just go all the way back here and open that door. You know. But what you gonna do? We gotta do it to beat the game. So, oh yikes. gonna save here, because sometimes enemies can be a little bit aggressive and scary. Mostly fire monks. Oh my goodness! I knew I was talking about them. Alright. Alright, so we're going back to this room to use the key that we now have. It's also very important that when I go in that room the first time I kill the fire monks in that room, because if I don't, they're going to get in the way. They will actually block off the entrance and be next to impossible to deal with. Alright, so now we're on the actual area where we're going to encounter El Oscuro. And I said this isn't really a boss fight, because it really isn't. It's more like a timed survival. So El Oscuro is interesting. This form of him does not take any damage. Instead, if you do an attack to him, he will just gain energy back. So the goal with this fight is you need to wear El Oscuro's energy out. So he's going to do a series of attacks. We just have to wait for it, unfortunately. And we can't even skip this because the exit, which is right over there, is blocked by a pillar, and that pillar does not move until El Oscuro's done. So we do have, this is a bit of a waiting game. The trick here is just to not die. Make sure you still have consistent asbestos armor. And are not carelessly getting attacked by any of these attacks. Because El Oscuro can kill you very fast. Oh god, he did the move. That's one of his various attacks where he just flies at you. It doesn't happen often, so it scares me when it does happen. It's kind of amusing, though. But you want to just kind of kill all the other enemies in the room, because if they attack El Oscuro, he'll do different attacks too. But yeah, this boss, this section takes about like a minute and a half, maybe. He should be coming up on his transformation really soon, and we generally want to stay relatively close to where the exit is, so that when he transforms, we can just go straight to the exit, like that. And now it's time for Canyon Chase. This is just a running section where we just gotta chase El Oscuro through a canyon before we go to the final level. Kind of a little interlude between this and the final boss. So it's all just about moving fast here. And you can't even damage El Oscuro. He has some interesting stuff about him that I'll explain when we actually fight him in the next map. But the next level, I should explain something important about this game and how it ends. So, there's technically two endings to this game. The first ending is just if you beat El Oscuro and don't kill these larvae. If you don't do that, the game makes it seem like you won, but eventually in the future these larvae spawn and destroy the Earth. So, what it'll do is it will spawn you back to the beginning of this level, and it will say to try and stop him. So if you do kill all the larvae, you get the true ending of the game. So for the speedrun, since that's like the only real true ending, because the bad ending isn't really a true ending at all, it's what we go for in the run. So we have to kill all of the larvae, and while this doesn't seem like that much, there is an entire other room that most people are going to miss. I also missed something important in the previous room that I need to get, which is a touchpad that reveals a secret area. That's going to get us a key, which is important to get for the last section with the larva. It's locked away with a key. So actually finding these last things of larva is really kind of a pain, because it's not directly implied on how you're supposed to get to them. Alright, so here's El Oscuro. We're going to ignore him for just a moment. Grab this firebomb and this asbestos armor, and we're going to go kill the last of his larvae. This whole room here that the average person is not going to find the first time they play this game. We want to use the firebomb to clear as much as we can, but for the most part, we're going to be using this weapon here, the Excalibat, to clear out most of the larva. So this weapon is super cool because it's just a baseball bat that you charge up and it fires a wave of explosive baseballs. Oh, I missed that last one. Okay, that's fine. But it also has just a standard melee attack, which is just swinging the baseball, which is nice. And before we leave this area, I want to make sure I killed all the larvae. Looks like I did. Like I said, if you even miss one larva, you don't get the true ending. We're gonna get one more Excalibat to fight the boss with, because there's no better way to stop evil than to use America's favorite pastime to kill him. I'm gonna save here just in case this goes badly. And as I've said earlier, there's a weird thing with El Oscuro. He only takes damage when he's on these little pots of fire right here. So the trick is you need to get him on here and hit them with and do as much damage as you can. And the easiest way to do that is with the Excalibat. I gotta be a little careful here because I'm stuck. Get out. Thank you. Yeah, El Oscuro can do that sometimes. I lost my Excalibat, but that's not the big deal. I just need to finish off his last head, which is easy. But yeah, the Excalibat does the most damage to him. It's actually theoretically possible to kill him with one baseball swing, but that requires you to hit, like, all of his bodies simultaneously, and it's very hard and very random. But yeah, that was the final boss fight, which means the end of the game is coming up. This run was a pretty good example of how just a average RNG run will go. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, this is using a little bit more conservative strats. In a real run for a good time, there would be less quick saving, and I probably would have killed the run several times. But for just completion, that's not bad. 5127. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully this game gets into AGDQ this upcoming year, because I've put a lot of time into not only just routing the game, but making a lot of strats significantly more consistent and making just completing a run much more possible. And one last thing I'm going to show off is that I in fact did get the best ending. So we did complete the run legitimately. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you liked it.